Hello, my name is Aaron Kavanagh and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Post-Burnout.com. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. This is our website's podcast where we publish full-length recordings of our interviews, which are sometimes the unedited versions of our site's articles and at other times are exclusives. If you're a returning listener, thank you for coming back, and if this is your first time listening, thank you for checking us out. We hope you enjoy and consider subscribing, giving the episodes a thumbs up if you're on YouTube, or giving it a rating if you're anywhere else. It really helps us out. Thank you. Alright, in this edition of PostBurnout.com interviews, I'm delighted to chat with the legendary musician Greg Norton. Greg was the bassist of the Minnesota post-hardcore band Hüsker Dü, who are one of my favourite bands of all time. So I asked him a lot of questions about the mythology surrounding the band, including whether they had taken meth whilst recording Zen Arcade, as has been cited in some of the literature surrounding Hüsker Dü. We also discussed the first time they played in London, and the general mental and physical attrition that playing in such a consistent and overworked manner brought with it. Then we discussed Greg's new punk supergroup UltraBomb, which features Vinnie McConnell from the Mahones on guitar and vocals and Jamie Oliver from the UK Subs on drums. Despite only being about half a decade old, the band have toured extensively across North America and the UK and recently supported Me First in the Gimme Gimmes on the US tour. In June, UltraBomb released their second album, Dying to Smile, on DC Jam Records, an indie label that's been preserving the work of a lot of 80s punk acts. Greg discusses the new album and why he got involved with DC Jam. Additionally, we discuss Greg's recent health scare, how writing for UltraBomb compares to Hüsker Dü, the Minnesota music scene, the resurgence of vinyl records, how he still gets to play in new cities even 4 decades after being in the industry, and much, much more.
Hello.
Hey Greg, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear you
There we
fine.
go.
Hi, it's nice to meet
My
you.
hair looks lovely today. How are you?
I'm very well. It's very nice to meet you. Um, Before we begin, I actually wanted to do a bit of show and tell. I had this ticket from a show which unfortunately didn't end up happening, but that was from the Grand Social Show from what should have been 27th of March, about 2 years ago. Yeah, I mean, I've been following UltraBomb since I was aware of it, probably since 2021, 22. I was like a huge Hüsker Dü fan. I was always like really interested in kind of what each member did afterwards, and I obviously followed the careers of Bob and Grant, and I was really excited to hear that you returned to music. My understanding, if I'm correct, was after the band split in '87, you kind of went into the culinary arts and kind of took a huge sabbatical for music, and didn't come back until I think the late 2000s. Would that be correct?
Uh, that is correct. I wandered back into the restaurant world and met a really good friend who was uh, a very talented chef, and he kind of took me under his wing and mentored me, and I became a chef myself and had a 15-year career doing that. The restaurant world is very demanding on your time, and I literally went 14 years without picking up a bass, and uh, was coaxed out of retirement by some jazz musicians for kind of uh, a band that is very hard to define because it's not jazz, it's not rock, it's not math metal or anything like that. It's really kind of a an odd mix of pretty much everything. And that was a really good thing for me to get back into because they just wanted me to play whatever I heard over the compositions that they wrote, and it was a lot of fun. And that led to joining a band in Minneapolis called Porcupine, which was more of a alternative rock indie type band. And that was really good for me as well to kind of get my rock chops back up and running. And when that uh, ended, that's when Finney reached out to me and said, "Hey, let's start a band with Jamie." And originally, we were just going to get together just for laughs, and they had Finney had studio time booked in Berlin, and I just decided, I've never met these guys. I should maybe
Yeah.
go meet them and see if there's actually anything real here. And we wrote Time to Burn, and we wrote 10 songs in 2 days and put the lyrics to it in the next 2 days. And so Time to Burn was amazing. It felt like we had been playing together forever. It was so easy for us to write the music. And, we felt that we recorded a punk rock classic. And, get forward another couple of years and we recorded Dying to Smile in London in December. And again, we knocked this one out in another 4 days. We wrote 12 songs the first 2 days and actually ended up with 14 tracks that we recorded. This band is something special.
There's a lot to go there. So I'll start with this. You were mentioning meeting Finney. I mean, my understanding of how you met was the Mahones shared a cover of I think it was "Makes No Sense at All," the Hüsker Dü song. You liked the song. Vinny saw you liked it, sent you a friend request, and then you guys met through that channel. Were you familiar with their band prior to that?
I have to admit, I was not familiar with the Mahones
Yeah.
until that popped up on my radar, and I did like it. I thought, I thought they did a pretty good cover of it. Although I told Finney that, yeah, your bass player didn't get the bass part right, and he laughed and said, "Haha, that was me."
Oh.
I said, "Well, I'll have to show you how to play it right one of these days." So, uh, yeah, so I mean, all of that time I spent in the restaurant business too. I was kind of, in that vacuum and I really didn't get exposed to a lot of music. I mean, pretty much if something happened or was popular or got, was big in the 90s, most likely I missed it. So
Yeah.
a lot of the bands that blew up in the 90s were bands that I, later on, like, didn't really know and then had to, get familiar with. So it was kind of fun to explore that. But yeah, I mean, the Mahones are, I mean, they're an impressive unit, and obviously they've been around for a long time. And Finney's put out a lot of records, and they've toured a lot and played a lot of big shows. But Finney's ready to commit to UltraBomb, and we're gonna, get out and continue our plan for world domination. So
I want to ask actually when you kind of got back into the music scene then, I mean, how much did you find it had changed? Did you remain in Minneapolis? I wasn't sure if you were in Minneapolis or St. Paul or elsewhere, but you were in the Minnesota scene still. So how do you find that it had changed since you'd been away? I mean, like obviously venues like the First Avenue and 7th Street Entry still remained, but beyond that, had much changed? Had much was there new things? Was there old things remaining?
yeah, it's yeah, First Avenue and 7th Street Entry is still around. The First Avenue, they're one of the they're probably the largest concert promoter in Minnesota. Locally, they book quite a few venues under their umbrella. I think one of the things that kind of, it's from when we were doing it back in the 80s, there were only a few spots where you could go to discover music. There wasn't an internet, there wasn't, YouTube or Apple Music or Spotify or any of these places. In order to discover new music, you went to you went to the club to see the bands when they came through. You hung out in your record stores. All of that is completely different now. Oh, that's my dog, Jackson. I mean, there's still a handful of really great record stores out there. One thing I noticed, particularly in Minneapolis and St. Paul, is that there are so many small venues now that have music, and a lot of them you can go to and you really feel a sense of community. And some of them are more scene specific. And personally, I believe for a scene to thrive, it needs to also have that sense of community where people are supporting each other. But I think with because of the internet and the way everyone's brains are trained now, it's too easy to, just swipe past something or scroll past something if it doesn't immediately catch your attention.
Hmm.
And sometimes you go to shows and you see the same thing where there'll be 5 bands on the bill and each band brings in their own group of people, which is great. But then they don't stick around and they all
Yeah.
leave. And it's like, well, why don't you stick around and listen to the other bands too? It's like, let's make this a community. There are definitely bars in Minneapolis that have that, which is great. Those are the ones that I kind of prefer to go and hang out at. Um, but sometimes you do need to go to one of those smaller spots that is more scene specific if you want to check somebody out. But I'll go and check out all the bands. I wish everybody else would too.
Yeah. Actually, I want to ask because you were mentioned there with the record stores. I mean, obviously, your background was working in record stores. I think that's where you met Grant Hart, for example. I was wondering, like, for years people were kind of ringing the death tolls of records stores, but there's been a huge resurgence in vinyl, and it seems kind of antithetical to, what we're told about kind of like music listeners of today, where yeah, I mean, like you having a 15-second hook on like TikTok or something to get people kind of in. It's sort of like the kind of 2.5 minute radio convention is sort of shrunk even further. But then at the same time, people are still engaging, it seems, with kind of long form music, and actually kind of like listen to an album the way the artist intended it to be. I was wondering, do you find what's your perception on, I guess, the kind of continuation of vinyl and of records?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy cycle to watch. It's like record stores, had that big switch to CDs and nobody was buying records, and you could find, go to used record stores and just find tons of great stuff, dirt cheap. And then all of a sudden the vinyl resurgence has come back, which I love. I love, holding a 12-inch album and looking at the artwork and really appreciating everything that the artist put into uh, that package. And now CD sales have greatly dropped off to the point where a lot of record labels won't even manufacture CDs anymore because one thing about CDs is that stores can return CDs to distributors, but once vinyl goes out of distro, they're sold. They can't be returned. I think obviously there are still a lot of people that have CDs, and I think for touring musicians, I think it's not a bad thing to have on your merch table along with the vinyl. But I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago, also saying it's like, yeah, now there's a huge resurgence in cassette tapes.
Yeah,
Like a
I've
lot
noticed
of
that too.
younger bands are making cassettes. Um, I've even heard of a few bands that have like manufactured 8 tracks of all things, but obviously, I mean, that's more of a like a just a weird, odd collector's type thing. But uh, people will find your music in whatever format that they want. I love that, like I said, I just love that vinyl records are back, and
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of my favorite things was to just go and hang out at the local record store, and all of a sudden they put something on, and you're like, hey, who's this? This
Yeah.
is great,
I still
and
get that. It's so great.
yep. Yeah. So it's, and record stores were a safe spot too. It's like, um, that's another thing. Again, it kind of gets back to that community sense of community.
Yeah. And sort of going back to UltraBomb. Sorry, I'm kind of like going all over the place here with this.
Oh, that's fine.
Going back to UltraBomb, you mentioned you flew to Berlin. It was the first time you met Finney and Jamie. My understanding is yeah, so you you'd known Finney just solely online, but that was your first time actually meeting Jamie, if I'm correct. It was in Berlin. I was wondering, this is probably a stretch, but I was wondering, did you find any kind of kinship with Jamie in the sense that his dismissal from the UK subs is not too dissimilar to your dismissal from Porcupine, or is that just a reach on my end?
Uh, yeah, that's a little bit more of a reach.
Yeah.
It's my dismissal from Porcupine was more of a things just didn't work out.
Okay.
Uh, I loved playing with those guys. Uh, Jamie's dismissal from the subs was, probably a bit odd.
Mhm.
We never really talked about it though.
Okay. Yeah. And one thing I was then once you started this project, I believe like the beginning of it was based on lyrics you kind of accrued over the years, trying to finally put them to record. I mean, obviously with Husker Du, I mean there was kind of a McCarthy Lennon thing going on between Bob and Grant, and I was wondering to kind of go from the forefront to being the I guess the primary lyric writer. If I'm not sure how the actual songwriting overall comes, if it's a collaborative thing or if each person writes their own individual songs in terms of the instrumentation. But when it comes to being kind of the primary lyricist, what was that like then going from say the days of Husker Du?
I was really blown away by how well uh, Finney was able to take my lyrics and uh, you know intertwine and layer them to the music that we created. So Finney comes up with guitar riffs, and then we, as a band, will take a riff and we'll make a song out of it. We'll write the arrangement. Where's the chorus? Where's the bridge? Does it need anything? And once we're satisfied with that, it's after the music, after the basic song has already been completed, is when the lyrics get matched up to it. Um, Finney matched up all of the lyrics on the first record on his own. I basically picked lyrics on Dying to Smile and would hand them to Finney, and he'd go and sing them. Uh, it works really well.
Yeah.
I mean, I write when I'm writing lyrics. Oftentimes, I might have a melody in my head, but it's nothing like what it ends up being paired with, and it just works out really great. Hüsker Dü was kind of a situation where you had to have like a song ready to go to show the band, and it was like if you wrote it, you sing it. Um, and it Bob and Grant are, you know, two amazing songwriters, and so it was kind of tough in that world to number one feel like I had something that was good enough to kind of match up with their intensity. Uh, and there was also a feeling of when I did bring things into a rehearsal to try to introduce something that I had written, that they maybe weren't taking it as seriously as they took their own stuff.
Mhm.
Uh, so that was difficult, and also that was mentally hard um, to try to um, match their intensity. But with UltraBomb, it doesn't feel like that at all. It's like the music has been so easy,
Yeah.
and Finney and I hope will continue to create and write fantastic punk songs for a long, long time.
Yeah, actually, I've talked to other artists who've kind of started bands after like having been in previously successful bands, and I often find that for the later bands there tends to be a lot more of a kind of relaxed environment. There tends to be because you don't have that kind of focus of being like we have to make it, we need to be the next big thing. You can kind of just make songs that are going to be appreciated by yourselves and by whatever audience you accrue, but it seems to have a lot more of a kind of I don't know, a kind of a lot more freeing, I guess, a lot more emancipatory kind of quality to it. I don't know if that's been your experience, but UltraBomb has a kind of different in terms of, I guess, the ambitions of the band versus say a Hüsker Dü or Porcupine.
Uh, I'm sorry, my dog was distracting me. Could you just repeat the part about the things where you talked about the what? Okay, I'm
But
sorry.
this part about the stuff, yeah, no, I was saying when I've talked to other artists who've who've had success in previous bands, and kind of when they start a band like later on after they've had their success, especially if it's like in this kind of super group kind of context such as UltraBomb is, there tends to be a lot more of a kind of relaxed and sort of freeing environment in the sense that there's not much. There's not so much like anxiety about like making it or kind of getting your name known. I was wondering, like, from your perspective, I mean, how does Ultra Bomb in that sense, like, has it been a more relaxed environment? Has it like I'm kind of what's your sort of, I guess, goals and ambitions with this project? Is it just to perform and play at your own leisure, or do you have kind of expectations beyond that?
Uh, yes, Ultra Bomb. We are we're in a position right now where we want to get out and tour as much as we can, get back into the studio to record the next record. Continuing to tour. We're committed and dedicated to seeing how far we can go with Ultra Bomb. And Ultra Bomb's blowing up. I mean, the reviews
Yeah.
are great. The live reviews are great, and it's a band that we are super comfortable playing together. We're having so much fun, playing and recording, that really I mean, that for the cliche of the sky's the limit, and uh, Porcupine. Well, my years in Porcupine, I was trying to raise the profile of the band, try to get us out a little bit more, but I think that in a way was maybe moving them out of a particular comfort zone.
Hmm.
And there was one main writer in that band who wrote all of the music and he wrote all of the lyrics, and so there wasn't a whole lot of wiggle room
Yeah.
there. But Ultra Bomb is unique in that it's so easy for us to get together and play music, and we have so much fun doing it, that's the plan. We want to just keep doing that, and hopefully more and more people will come to our shows and listen to our records. And like I said, sky's the limit.
Perfect. Yeah, I want to talk also a little bit about kind of like how fast, like, it seems like Ultra Bomb's kind of nothing's really like slowed it down. I mean, obviously there was like that huge health scare you had, which I believe you had prostate cancer, and but I believe you're okay now, if I'm correct.
That's correct.
Um,
Yep.
Glad to hear it. I really am. And but like even with something as kind of like significant as that, I mean, like, it seems like you've only been around for like less than half a decade, and you have two albums out, and like as you said, I mean, like, it's just grown and grown. I mean, I think you recently did a tour with like Me First and the Gimme Gimmes. You did Punk Rock Bowling. I believe you're playing Hellfest at the end of the month in France. Is that correct?
We were scheduled to, but we had to pull out due to uh, some personal family issues.
Sure.
We didn't have any tour planned around that. It was just going to be a one-off. So unfortunately, we will not be playing Hellfest next weekend. Um, at least, so. But we will be out on the road, particularly in the United States, a lot, starting in the fall and pretty much through the plan for the rest of this year and 2025 is you're going to see UltraBomb out touring a lot. We'll be getting back to Europe and to Britain and Ireland for the first time for me. That'll be awesome. I'm looking forward to that. We'll finally play those shows in Canada. And I fully expect us to be, having some good spots on a lot of festivals next year. And UltraBombs, we are, for as young as we are, this band literally is blowing up, pun intended. We're the UltraBomb, right? So,
well, I also love the kind of the double meaning of that band. You were explaining, like, if you blew up, you were the UltraBomb, but if you sucked, you were also the UltraBomb in a
right,
negative way.
exactly, yep. And I'm sure to certain listeners that name applies either way, depending on what they think. But I think for the most part, it seems that we're blowing up in a good way. So
Yeah, I would agree with that. Your recent album you were mentioned there, "Dying to Smile," it came out not too long ago, and as you were mentioning, it was recorded at the end of last year in London at the end of a tour. Yeah, I was wondering, as you were mentioning, I think you said 4 days, right? So, making albums in very short amount of time is something that you're obviously familiar with Hüsker Dü. I mean, I believe Zen Arcade, for example, was recorded in 48 hours from start to finish, all post-production work in 48 hours, which is crazy because that's like a 70-minute epic. I was wondering, like, is kind of the old kind of punk rock thing of making albums as kind of quickly as you can. Is that still a kind of ethos that kind of resonates with you, or is that just circumstantially how it came about?
with Hüsker Dü, we were always writing and touring the record that we were about to go into the studio
Yeah.
with, as opposed to the record that just came out. So a lot of times you would go to a Hüsker show and be like, I just bought your new record. You hardly played anything off of it. You played all these songs I've never heard before. So there was the economics of time in the studio is, we wanted to, once we got in there, know that the material was going to be tight and ready to go. So that's why we were able to record Zen Arcade as quickly as we did. Everything Falls Apart, Metal Circus, Zen Arcade, those were all recorded out in California with Spot at Total Access. And we only had a short window to get the job done, so we had to have the music ready. Starting with New Day Rising and every album after that, those were all recorded in Minneapolis. And then all of a sudden, now you've got more studio time. There's more time to mess around with stuff, so to speak. I don't think that's necessarily a great thing, because I think it leads to some overthinking in production sometimes. With UltraBomb, because everybody lives in a different time zone and a different country, it's not like we're can get together and rehearse every night and write new music. So when we do get together, and this is where, like, we're lucky, is that the music has come together so easily. Like I said, the first time we played in Berlin, it was like I felt like I had played with these guys forever. And I think part of that is, each of us has a very deep musical vocabulary to draw from. And it wasn't, and there's like no real big, there are no egos involved. We're just getting together and we're playing. It does feel like we're like, 14-year-old kids in rehearsing in a basement for the first time. And ideally, for the next record, I would love to have more time in the studio to work on some things. But I also feel like, too much time is a dangerous thing. So
Yeah. Yeah, and as you were mentioning, I mean, you're kind of getting the opportunity now also to kind of with this band, I mean, to play places that you didn't get to play with Hüsker Dü. I mean, my understanding actually is when you went to Berlin to do that initial rehearsal, that was your first time ever in Berlin. I mean, obviously
right,
Hüsker Dü
yeah,
played
Purdue
Germany.
never played Berlin, so
Yeah.
I mean, Bob lived there for quite a long time. Grant went there, that was all post Husker. That was my first time, so that was great. It's like Hüsker Dü has never played Ireland. I'm like really looking forward to playing in Ireland. Even on this last Gimmes tour, we played some cities that was the first time that I had ever played
Yeah.
them. So it's that is really super exciting to me. And getting out and playing cities that I've played a lot that I love playing, and seeing old friends and stuff like that is great too. So
Actually, could I ask, was it true when Husker Du first played at London, you guys were in the midst of a US tour, you put all your stuff in storage, flew over, played on the rented equipment, came back the next day and just resumed the tour. It was you were over there and back like within 48 hours. Is that correct?
yeah, actually we were in London for I think a total of 30 hours. So we
Wow.
were in the middle of a tour. We played a show in Washington D.C. at the 930 Club. Uh, we had a sound guy. Actually, we had our house sound engineer that toured with us, and a couple other guys that were helping as roadies. So they basically packed up all the gear. They drove it to Cleveland. We flew in. We got into London, I believe, at like 11 o'clock. The next morning at 10 a.m., we were at Campden Palace, which is now Coco,
Hmm.
and we recorded the Live in London TV program, and it was all rented equipment. Which it's that video is funny because Bob's playing I think an Iceman instead of a flying V, and I think I had a P bass, which I
Yeah.
um, and like the strap came off in the first song or something like that. And so that was done taping by 12 noon that day. And we were back on a plane later that evening, landed in Cleveland, and basically got picked up, went straight to the gig, and we played, and we just resumed the tour. So yeah, that was a crazy experience.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
with that kind of like touring schedule, it was similar to also to what Black Flag used to do, and I suppose like a lot of the SSC bands, where it was just like perpetual touring, perpetual recording. We're talking about doing like a 70-minute album in like 48 hours and stuff, and it's a lot of the kind of mythology about Husker Du is wrapped in things like meth and psychedelics and beer. I mean, I remember reading Bob's book years ago, his autobiography, and he mentioned during the recording of I'm not asking you to incriminate yourself by the way, but during the recording of Zen Arcade, supposedly you put crystal meth in a coffee filter or drinking special coffee.
Right.
How
I would like to clarify that for the record.
okay.
Uh, if there was any crystal meth involved, I was not partaking. I don't believe that Bob or Grant actually were partaking. What he is referring to is something that Spot introduced us to, which he picked up from the Descendants. It was called a bonus cup, and a bonus cup was a coffee cup that you would basically fill at least half full with Folgers crystals, which was
Okay.
an instant coffee brand. And you'd add a bunch of sugar to it, and then you'd just top it up with like hot water out of the tap. And it was kind of a slurry of just packed full of caffeine. And we drank bonus cups like all weekend long. In Bob's book, the Hüsker chapter basically is the Michael Azerrad version of the band. When Azerrad wrote Our
Our
band
band
could
could
be
be your
your
life.
life. I believe he was just looking to sensationalize a lot of stories. Uh, yeah, there are probably some things in there that are accurate, but I think a lot of things got blown out of proportion just to like, hey, look how crazy these guys are. I mean, it's like you read through his book. I think the only band that he didn't really sensationalize was the Minutemen, and I think that was just from respect and reverence for D. Boone passing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Michael Azerrad, helped Bob write his book. So from what someone told me is that Bob's recollection on a lot of those Hüsker days, this is before he stopped drinking, were a little foggy and not necessarily accurate. So when there would be conflicting stories, they would just kind of pick the one that they thought sounded the
Sexier.
wildest or whatever,
Yeah.
So there are a lot of inaccuracies in both of those books. I'll
Okay.
leave that at that.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify that. But regardless of that, I mean, like, how do you find kind of like regardless, like looking back like of that kind of era? I mean, how do you find I don't know, just like how do you like just the attrition that I guess your body must have been going through, or mentally and physically? I mean, do you find that that was going to be something that was sustainable? Was there any let up at all during your time in Husker Du?
We toured a lot. It was the early days. It was oftentimes we barely had any money. It's like
Mhm.
hopefully we'd have enough money for gas to get to the next gig. Uh, you kind of get used to having one meal a day type of thing. Um, you end up sleeping a lot. uh, as as tours progressed and the fan base grew bigger and bigger. I remember basically we we used to always find somebody to stay with, try to do the tours as cheaply as possible. But all of a sudden you discover it's like, wow, every place that we are staying is where the after party is. And everybody there wants to like party your face off for the whole night because you're there.
Yeah.
They get to take the day off the next day and call into work and say like I'm hungover or whatever. We have to go to the next town and then do it all over again. So that's when we started to book hotel rooms, and it started off we'd get one room, the three of us would stay in it, and then eventually we had added Lou Giordano, our sound guy, so then we got two rooms. And by the time we were on Warner Brothers, it's like, hey, we all had our own rooms. But uh yeah, trying to take care of yourself on the road often can be a difficult thing. And I think that really boils down to the individual and how you handle it. Um, and it still is the same today, being out on the road. You can't. Um, yeah, it's great to go out and go to an after party and hang out, but the reality is the next day you've got a job to do, and particularly on larger tours where there's uh, support staff hired by the venue to help you unload your gear and set it up. And if you're not there in that window, that's being disrespectful of their time, and it's also not being professional. So uh, you gotta handle that stuff and be show up and do your job, and that helps you take care of yourself.
Yeah. You've been very, very gracious with your time, Greg. I don't want to take up too much more. I just wanted to ask one final question about the album, and that is, it's on DC Jam Records, who are like currently, releasing, kind of like a lot of the bands, kind of actually from the Hüsker Dü era, people like JFA and Fishbone, and as well as like
PSOL.
re-releases from
Yeah.
yeah, as
Mhm.
well as like re-releases from bands like the Addicts and stuff, and it seems like it's really kind of cultivating a lot of punk rock history. I was wondering two things based on that. I mean, one, how did you get involved with DC Jam? And I believe Porcupine was on there, if I'm correct. How did you kind of get involved with them and sign UltraBomb with DC Jam? And the other question is, I mean, when you kind of look at so many so many kind of like preservations of a lot of the music of that time. I think also of the label Kitten Robot Records as well. It seems to kind of be perpetuating a lot of that kind of legacy. Do you find it, as someone who was there, I mean, do you find that kind of vindicating, or how do you feel about that?
Uh, so I was introduced to Darren Heeman. He's he is DC Jam. He's the label.
Mhm.
Uh, through a friend in Minneapolis, Dennis Pulowski. Dennis is actually an attorney that he helps us manage all of the Hüsker Dü business. And when Porcupine was, when I recorded the one record I did with Porcupine, uh, looking for somebody to put it out, Dennis put me in touch with Darren. Darren immediately was like, "Yeah, of course I'll put this out because I'm a huge Hüsker Dü fan and I'm a Greg Norton fan, and you're involved with this, so I'm going to do this." Uh, when I had put up actually, I think Finney put up a post on Facebook when we were in Berlin saying like, "UltraBomb's recording our first debut record." Darren immediately sent me a text and said, "I don't know what this new project is, but I want to put it out."
Yeah.
And Darren wanted to put Time to Burn Out. I actually was trying to convince the other two guys, like let's do this through Darren. Uh, Unfortunately, we made a very poor decision in deciding that we actually would be able to put it out ourselves, and it would be great. That was a hard lesson to learn. Again, apologies to everyone that waited so long to get those records. That was that was a lot of hair pulling and frustration. So when Darren ultimately then distributed Time to Burn for us once it was finally out, and was like, "Well, I want to put your next record out. So as soon as you guys are ready to go in the studio, let me know." And I am behind you guys 100%. And Darren and I have become like really, really good friends. So he believes in what I'm doing. He believes in what UltraBomb is doing, and the record is blowing up. He can't believe uh, how fast UltraBomb has like progressed, and he has undying faith in what we're doing. So it's great to have somebody like that in your corner. Uh, we've got a great manager who also believes in what we're doing. We actually have a booking agent. I mean, we have a team of really good people behind us. So our job now is just keep making those records and showing up on time for those gigs.
Perfect. The final thing I'll ask, sorry, is just something I wanted to touch on just before we finish, and that was as we were mentioning, I mean, you're kind of the primary lyric writer of this project. I was wondering when it comes to kind of the topics you choose to kind of focus on, because I was listening to the album and it really did seem to kind of each song felt very individualized. Didn't feel like I don't know, at least to me, at least my reading as a listener, it didn't feel like there was a connected through line that you felt like railroaded to in any way. I was wondering how do you choose kind of like what to actually write about?
Some of them are very personal, and some of them are just something that I'll observe, or over, or hear. I wrote two songs last night, just
Yeah.
being inspired from watching John Oliver on um, on the television. He put up had a story up, and it's something in the story like hit me, and it's like immediately I had a song written about it. A lot of the songs also sometimes will end up being pieced together from like, like an idea will pop in my head, I'll quick jot it down, and then it'll sit there, and then later something else will pop up, and then further down the road I'll be going through things, and it's like, these actually work together really well, type of thing. So I guess I'm not a storyteller like Finney. Finney is a storyteller, so a lot of his, the way he writes songs, it's he's telling a story. And my stuff is, I guess, more beat poetry.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much for your time, Greg. I've really, really enjoyed talking to you, and it's very nice to have this opportunity. Like I said, I've been a fan of your music since I was a teenager, so I'm really happy that you're back and still doing stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's great, and I'm hoping to catch an UltraBomb show if you guys are ever in Dublin. Yeah, thanks very much for your time, Greg. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up, or?
I I guess the other thing I want to add is I can't wait to play Dublin.
Can't we see here? Actually, could
Yeah.
I ask? Hüsker Dü never had was never invited over here, were they, or like never had interest from promoter here, did they? Or
We played we played the UK quite a
Mhm.
bit. Scotland, Wales, England. I don't know why we never actually played in Ireland.
Okay,
Uh, I'm sure we would have gotten there eventually, but but then the band broke up. So there you go.
life happens. Thanks very much for your time, Craig, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. Thanks for taking the time out to talk to me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, anytime. Thank you very much.
Yep. All right. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We're an independent venture run by yours truly, and as I said at the beginning, liking, rating, subscribing, and sharing really helps us out a lot. If you're feeling extra generous, we do have a PayPal donation link in the episode description, but don't feel obligated, of course. We've also begun releasing occasional exclusive episodes on Spotify, so subscribe there if you'd be interested in hearing those. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.